Hello and welcome back to a new build challenge. Today's video is about the inverted dark ride. I am in Parkitect version 1.4c. We didn't get anything new this month, only the additions of the new items that were accepted last month, and I did not get in this time, but that's okay. I still like doing these challenges. So, inverted dark ride, very interesting ride and a very challenging one it is. So in my experience with this ride, I've only built one before in an old park of mine, a really old one called, I think it was called Astroland. I think it was in a normal sandbox map, so a normal like one of the generic ones that were like given to us in the beginning of the I think one of the betas or something, or I think it was beta or alpha. Alpha. I don't remember, but I built one a long time ago, and I made it like a time traveling one where it went to different time zones and places. If you guys are interested in maybe seeing that map from me, and if you want to see that in a video, shoot a comment in the description, the comment section below. Maybe I might make that a video of visiting some of my old stuff because I have like piles of that stuff. Regardless, so designing this one was somewhat difficult. I had a couple days of thinking of what I wanted to work on. So my first idea is I wanted to make it fantasy based or something of that nature. My original inspiration was a ride in Eiffling called Dream Flight that I watched recently on YouTube, and I liked how it was, well, fantasy, so it had the same hanging cars like the inverted dark ride in Parkitect. So that was kind of already the inspiration there, is that it already looked like this ride from the game. And also had this fantasy-like thing, so I already wanted to do fantasy. The original idea for this ride was to do like a cave system, and then I found out how much money you were given, and so I completely scratched that idea because you're only given, I think, 12,000 to start with, and then 5,000 for scenery. So I knew that rocks were not going to be the answer because rocks are super expensive. So I had to change up my basic plans for this ride. So right now you're seeing me just do like little plots of water. I wanted to do some like water effects basically. But I was like experimenting and making the layout. I thought to myself, we need to do clouds because of it's a flying ride, so you're hanging. So that was the first thought, was to do clouds, and then I thought of doing towers because in Dreamflight there's a section where you go to space, and there's these planets with castles on them, and they're like floating in the mid void. And so I like the idea of doing. I like that because it was with space and there's towers kind of floating, but I didn't want to do space themed for this. I still wanted to keep it fantasy. So doing clouds again, and then buildings floating in the clouds, kind of was the gist of it. Some people have already, like, I got some comments already on this project when I posted it on Facebook and Reddit, that it kind of matched my Whisper Winds port, which was my steampunk scenario map. So it kind of like maybe is a kind of an inspiration or kind of like a branch off of that. So that was kind of interesting. So that was kind of the idea here, just doing that. And you can just see me here. I'm just working on just putting in the clouds. I try not to put so many clouds or put so many shapes, because if I was really trying to make this detailed, I would make the giant, well, discs, the cylinder discs, as close as possible to get like curves of a cloud that I wanted. But right now I'm just going to try to do not as much as I could in detail for the shapes, because the shapes can get expensive. I think they're $8 a piece when they're giant at their full size. So I kind of wanted to limit myself, or kind of watch myself on building that. It's kind of what the challenge is with these build challenges. So I'm just going to work on just the towers and also the detailing of the towers. I didn't want to do too much detailing either, because I knew that would maybe bite me in the butt later if I spent too much money on that. And also I had to think about doing the station. So I liked how this turned out. I think this was better than my last month's build, because the jungle one that I made for the hanging coaster was kind of missing some things, and I think the layout was a little too spread out. So in this challenge, I tried to make it more confined, and also had in mind the playability. If I was going to take this map and place it into one of the scenarios and I needed it for play, this would work out. I think it's a very small blueprint. Here I'm trying out some different ideas to do some like towers or different types of cascading towers basically on this one. I later get rid of that because it was just too much, adding too much I think to it. I think just adding 2 towers like this makes it look okay. So I had a fun time doing this one, even though if I had more of the money, I probably would have done like maybe some like Crystal Canyon or Crystal Trench somewhere toward the end of the ride, because honestly with a dark ride there's multiple places you can go. Like for example, Snow White's Adventure at Disneyland, you go into the dwarfs house, and then you go into their mine, and then into the witch's castle, and then the dark forest part, and then at the end the witch dies, and so you see the happy ending. Kind of like that. That's how usually a dark ride is designed, is there's a story. In this at the moment there is no story, and that's what I feel is the downside for this ride. Is like, I wish I did a story, but at this point it's kind of just an adventure through the clouds of these towers and buildings. I mean, the name of the ride is actually not that inventive. I called it Floating Towers, and I could have made a better name, but it kind of was to the point. Floating Towers, that's what it is. Yeah, I'm not really good with names, but I think it works out. It kind of tells you what it is. So, yeah, pretty good so far. So here I'm just gonna work on some of the finishing touches, not finishing touches, more like figuring out where the roof should go for this main building for the ride. So this like the castle maybe, that's toward the bottom of the world. See, these are low clouds basically. If I had more shapes or more money again, I would make it the illusion of that this is all sitting on a cloud, even the station. But that would require me to completely cover the bottom with shapes, and that would actually maybe, I don't know, make it more expensive. It would make it more expensive, and it would make it weird to place on a map when you're trying to do a scenery play. And I'm also trying to keep away from building giant square buildings, because honestly, when a real dark ride's built, it is placed in a giant rectangle box. That's basically it. It's just sent in a box, and it's built with scenery inside, and that's it. With Parkitect, the extra challenge is to try to make it look interesting from a top view, like from this view, yet make it, I don't know, entertaining. Well, there's no entertaining to this. You get a rating of scenery rating here. So that's why I try to only do this type of architecture in a way, kind of showing case that it's like a little toy box, but it's not a toy box. I want to keep it outside the box. I did see a lot of other creations before I put mine up. People were just either plopping down tons of scenery around the track, not really like covering it up, or there was one build that was just a building, and that's it, and that was their ride. I don't necessarily agree with that, so that's why I try to do a little bit different design here. And that's why I want to try to make it as interesting as possible from my perspective, because the perspective in this game is limited, and that also changes the way you design a ride. So doing giant square buildings is not necessarily the smartest thing to do. I did that with the first time with this type of ride when I did it for Astroland, when I did my time travel ride. I kind of made scenes, and then I covered the roofs up completely, and so it was a completely boxed in ride, and it kind of loses its charm because you can't see into it. I know that a creator, the name of Mooman, when he does a dark ride, he makes glass ceilings or the glass roofs so you can see into the ride and see all the little details. That's a good way to go, but in my opinion, or in the way I want to build, I don't want to do that necessarily, because I don't want to spend most of my budget on just placing in a giant box, make walls box, and then making glass roofs. I think it kind of detracts from the ride. For what he does, it makes it better because he's making full-on parks. But for the challenges in this case, I don't do so. I should have also talked about, just rambling here, the doors on the towers. How I achieved that was with the just pillars from the medieval set, because I had to choose the medieval set because I wanted those walls, the brick walls at the bottom, and I also wanted to use, I think, some scenery from the medieval set. I can't remember what I did, but I did just pillars and brown color to make them look like doors. I don't want to use the default doors because those doors are not medieval enough, so I kind of did that. And then I did a little shape, a semicircle on top of it to make it like an awning or something. And for the windows, I'm using pillars again, and with a black center, and the little op crops are basically perfect for what the window is. So I'm using pillars as windows, which is cool. It's a cool technique. If you really are out of idea for windows, use different parts for things, and just changing the color makes it a different object in a way, because this game has no textures, and that's the great thing about it. So as I'm finishing up this ride, I'm just going to finish up either trying to make different towers, different shapes, or different cones, just to make them different. This one over here was kind of weird with the, I don't know, the square ones. Square doesn't really work for towers necessarily when they're already round. So I'm testing out different shapes and different ideas of what a tower should look like. Kind of was overdoing it, so kind of went back to normal. Yeah, a tip with towers is that if you do a square tower, it should have a square roof. If it's a round tower, it should have a round roof. Just give or take. Kind of how it should go, because it kind of looks unified and balanced. Because when you jump from different shapes here and there, it kind of makes the building confused or doesn't know what it is. So that's why I try not to do that. I also had the idea of when I put down the water, I was like, maybe these should be falling with waterfalls, like the clouds are giving off rain or something. So I decided to do that a little bit, and it kind of pulled it together because now it connected the sky to the ground. It gave it that more realistic look. And then over here I decided to do some of my signature rock work because I can't go without just placing. I need to put rocks in. I just think rocks are important. And again, I'm putting down rocks. I'm trying to use as little as I can, but honestly, I want to put so many rocks in the ocean or in this lake area. So I did a little bit of rocks here and there, just add a little bit of a like dodging technique where the ride's going to go close to them or something. I add a little bit of a border where the station is with the rocks on either side to give it that. This is the entrance, so if I was going to place this in the park, I'm going to extend out. I also want to give the player the ability to expand upon this ride, which they can. So if they wanted to build a rock in the back or a cave in the back area, they can kind of maybe branch off some of the rocks that are already placed down, giving them an idea of what to do. Kind of what that's kind of the forethought when building a challenge, because I want to make sure that this has playability. It's like a Lego set. Yeah, it's kind of like designing a Lego set in a way, because Lego designs their sets with playability in mind. It's not just building a set for, I don't know, Star Wars or for the city sets or something like that. They want to design it to give you playability and things to do. Okay, I'm just going to finish up some of the clouds, make sure the clouds are somewhat not clipping through the ride. Things like that, adding the splash effect on the waterfalls, because I think they're quite important to have. Then trying to do more rocks again. It's kind of what I want to do, more rocks. And then now I'm going to do some actual changing of the track or the editing to do the swivel parts or the directional parts for the ride, because I did that after I did the layout because I didn't know where scenery was going to go. So doing that after with scenery kind of gives you an idea of where you want the guests to kind of see and things like that. Then on to doing some of the flag stuff. So I did flags on every building. Yeah, every tower I did a flag, something like that. Then added some more details to clouds and maybe connected them from cloud to cloud, because kind of like the idea of making the clouds kind of connected together, but also maybe a little bit separated. So I had the cloud over on one side with one tower, things like that. So, oh yeah, and I decided to try to change maybe the clouds color, because I think white sometimes is a little too bright, but I decided to not change the rest of the clouds, things like that. Then finishing touches with the shields, and then I think after that I think I'd do some of the lighting for the buildings. So I'm going to leave you guys to it. This was the build for or floating towers, and I'll leave you guys with the POV. Bye.